A man named Eugene Pauly lost almost his entire memory. A virus destroyed the part of his brain responsible for recording new experiences. Leave the room for 60 seconds and return, and you'd be a stranger again. He couldn't tell you what he'd eaten for breakfast. He often couldn't remember whether he'd eaten at all. Ask him to draw a map of the house he'd lived in for years, and he couldn't do it. And yet, something remarkable remained. Every morning, Eugene got up and walked straight into the kitchen. The same kitchen he couldn't locate on a map. He opened the exact cupboard where the snacks were kept and helped himself. Take him for a walk through the neighborhood, and he couldn't explain how to get home. But somehow his feet knew. Again and again, they carried him back to his own front door. The scientist who studied him, Larry Squire, realized what this meant. Eugene's conscious memory was gone, but his habits were perfectly intact, which tells us something important. Habits don't live in the thinking, remembering part of the brain. They live somewhere deeper, in systems that continue running, whether the conscious version of you is paying attention or not. So where do those systems get their instructions? To answer that, picture a rat in a maze. Researchers at MIT played a clicking sound, then released a rat into a simple T-shaped maze with chocolate waiting at the end. During the first few runs, the rat's brain was incredibly active. It sniffed, paused, explored, made decisions. It was learning. But after enough repetitions, something changed. The thinking parts of the brain became much quieter. The entire sequence of actions collapsed into a single automatic program. The rat no longer needed to think. It was simply running the script. You do the same thing every day. Think about the first time you backed a car out of a driveway. It required complete attention. Mirrors, pedals, steering, hemming. Now you can do it while thinking about work, listening to the radio, or planning dinner. The routine has been compressed into autopilot. That's what a habit is. And here's the fascinating part. The rat's brain didn't go completely silent. Researchers noticed sharp bursts of activity at two specific moments: the beginning and the end, the cue and the reward. Everything in between became automatic. That's the structure of nearly every habit you have. A cue that signals the start, a routine that runs itself, and a reward that teaches the brain that worked. Do it again. But there's one more piece, and it's the engine behind the whole system. Once your brain learns that a cue predicts a reward, it begins craving the reward the moment the cue appears, before you've consciously decided anything. You sit on the couch. The craving arrives before the show even starts. You pass the drive-through sign. The urge appears before you've thought about food. By the time you're aware of the impulse, the machinery is already moving. The decision was never entirely yours to begin with. So does that mean habits are permanent? That you're stuck with them forever? Not at all. And this is where everything changes. You don't have to erase the loop. You simply change what happens in the middle. Keep the cue. Keep the reward. Replace the routine. Take the classic 3 o'clock cookie habit. At first it looks like a craving for sugar, but look closer. The cue may actually be fatigue, boredom, or restlessness. And the reward isn't necessarily the cookie. It's the break, the mental reset, the change of scenery. So when 3 o'clock arrives, you swap the routine. You grab cold water, walk outside for 5 minutes, stretch, talk to a coworker, same cue, same reward, different behavior. At first it feels awkward, clumsy, forced. That's because your conscious brain is steering again. But repetition changes everything. Eventually, the new behavior gets chunked down into autopilot, just like the old one did. And forget the myth that this happens in 21 days. When researchers actually measured habit formation, the average timeline was much closer to 2 months. Which is important, because the uncomfortable middle is exactly where most people quit. That awkward feeling isn't proof you're failing. It's proof the rewiring is happening. You cannot change a loop you cannot see. So the first step is never willpower. The first step is awareness. Watch yourself. Without judgment, without shame, get curious. Name the cue, name the routine, name the reward. Because your autopilot was never the enemy. You were simply never taught how to program it.